Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for your patience. We think we have our sound difficulties straightened out, and we welcome you to this gathering of SSUC. We are joined this morning by a team of musicians working together to bring us some beautiful pieces this morning. Nancy and I welcome you, as well as Pam and Jim on vocals, and Brett and Joseph Louis in the booth this morning. As we join together, we are celebrating and honoring the geography of our hearts. And as we do so, we are joined on this 8th day to talk about the geography of the Rockbed. So get your hip waders on, put on your rubber boots. We're going to walk into the river, onto the Rockbed. And as we do so, let's honor this land that we're in, this land that we're on. Wherever you happen to be, let's take a moment to breathe in its history, its heritage, and let's honor the people that have made this land and kept this land and honored this land. For us here in Edmonton and area, Treaty 6 territory, we are grateful for all of those located on Treaty 6, the languages and the cultures of the First Nations, Métis, First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continue to enrich us and teach us. As we join together, we do what we often do with one another. We light our candles. And if you have a candle at home, we invite you to light it with us. We are grateful to Sherry Ann Chapman, who this week we share her photo that she sent from home. This is her candle. This is her space where she has watched and participated with us as a community. And as soon as we get Sherry Ann's picture up there, we'll celebrate that she, like many of you, have sent in your pictures. And we invite you too, if you haven't done so already, to share a picture of the candle you light or the space that you've created when you join us as community. And so together now today, we light this candle in our space. And together with you, we light our lights to honor the connection between us, among us, and around us as we share light with each other and join together in today's geography of the heart. Let's put our voices together, speak loudly or quietly, whisper it or silently to ourselves, these words that might strengthen our intentions to live more closely as we pray. Two things can be true. We can lament shameful and painful chapters in our history, our harsh mistreatment of one another, the evils of racism and unrecognized privilege. And at the same time, we can encourage one another to live into the full potential of our common humanity and celebrate when we see it happening. So let's prepare and strengthen ourselves for this complicated living. To act in fear increases fear. To act in trust increases trust. To act in delusion increases delusion. To act in increases truth. To act in submission increases domination. To act with integrity increases equality. To know our anger frees our love. To free our love reveals our rage. To act in hate increases hate. To act in love increases love. To act in despair increases despair. To act in hope increases hope. This morning, by popular demand, we are going to continue to hear the poetic experiences of Irene and Charles. This is a book that we started reading last week, and these two authors have shared their experience of race and friendship by placing their stories in the characters of the same names. Charles and Irene are classmates who've become partners in a poetry project where they contrast their experiences in their alternating poems. Here are a few more poems from the book, Can I Touch Your Hair? Poems of race, mistakes, and friendship, by Irene Latham and Charles Waters, and illustrated by Sean Qualls and Selena Alco.
At church. At church, we light candles and pray for those who are sick. At church, we stand, sit, kneel. We give thanks for food and warmth and family. At church, the sun streams through our stained glass Jesus, his arms thrown wide to welcome everyone. At church, everyone is white.
Sunday service. Our Sunday service is like hitting a reset button, starting off the week with a new beginning. There's men dressed in suits so sharp you could cut yourself by looking at them. There's women testifying in wide-brimmed, bow-tied hats called crowns. Everyone's brown arms are raised in devotion except mine. If it says in the Bible that Jesus had hair like wool, eyes that were a flame of fire, and feet like brass as if they burned in a furnace, then why is everyone praising the straight-haired, blue-eyed white man I see looking down over all of us? Beach day. There's a pack of guys and girls whose pearly skins have been baked into a bronzed hue strolling past me. Each of them has hair woven into cornrows or twisted into dreadlocks. Some of their lips just jut out like pufferfish. When I wave, they look at each other, begin snorting, laughing at my good manners. I feel a fury rising inside me, as if I'm a tidal wave about to crash on land. I'm confused. Why do people who want to look like me hate me so much?
While the older girls shine themselves with cooking oil to get that perfect flapjack tan, Mama makes a ghost of me. She slathers on sunscreen so thick I turn stiff and sticky and my eyes sting. When Mama's not looking, I scrub it all off with a towel. I'd rather be sunburned than sugar sand white.
The athlete. In gym class, when captains select teammates for a game of basketball, I get picked first. Maybe for being lanky or for having darker skin. I guess it seems like a good idea to them until I take a shot that goes over the backboard. I get picked last for basketball after that. During reading time, when Mrs. Vandenberg says we each have to read a chapter of The Waltons Go to Birmingham, 1963, everyone groans when it's my turn, until the words gush out of my mouth, smooth and fast like the River Jordan. By the time I'm done, smiles spread across each classmate's face. I now get selected to read first every time.
Horseback riding. I don't know how to explain to Charles how I feel about horses when he shuffles so fast from one subject to the next. Finally, I blurt, "Sometimes I just need a break from people." He surprises me and shuts up right away. So I tell him about the sweet scent of hay and saddle soap, how my stomach somersaults when honey surges from trot to canter, and how the wind parts my hair when I lean into her neck, whispering, "Faster, faster." When I want honey to slow down, all I have to do is give the reins a gentle tug, and soon we're back to clip-clopping. Honey and I understand each other without any words at all.
Ghost. There's a new student at school who I haven't met yet. He goes by the name Ghost. At least that's what his new friends, all the same color, call him. I introduce myself. "Hey, Ghost, my name's Charles." His pasty skin heats up faster than a summer's day. "My name's Paul," he says, leaving my outstretched hand to dangle. I realize I'm a few shades too dark to be allowed to call him by his nickname.
Geography. When Mrs. Vandenberg points at the U.S. map and asks, "Why do we call this region the Black Belt?" I stretch my hand high, but she calls on Patty Jean instead. Patty Jean leans forward like she's sure she's right. "Because black people live there." Mrs. Vandenberg's face squinches like a rotten peach, and her voice comes out sour. "Of course not, Patty Jean. Use your head." I sink down into my seat. Patty Jean's answer is my answer. I learn when it comes to black and white, sometimes it's best to press my lips closed and not say anything at all.
Dinner conversation. Grandma and Grandpa are visiting, so our dining room table is filled with soul food. Crispy fried chicken coated in seasoning, Gooey, creamy baked macaroni and cheese, collard greens mixed with chunks of ham hock, red velvet cake smeared in cream cheese icing. But I can't eat any of this. A few weeks ago, I became a vegan, which means no meat or dairy foods for me. Mum brings out my plate filled with beans, rice, and pumpkin. I sprinkle Himalayan sea salt and chili pepper on top. I don't understand this, Dad says. Soul food is our history. I clamp my teeth down to hold back everything I want to say about how soul food leads to cancer and diabetes. How unfair that trillions of animals get killed every year for food and clothing. Instead, though, I swallow hard and say nothing. Everybody gazes at the food, silent. Dad shakes his head. Grandma turns away from the family, smiles, then gives me a wink as we begin to say grace.
Best and worst. Each night we go around the supper table, say the best part of our day and the worst. Bests are easy as creamed potatoes. An A on my math test, pajama day, new shoes. Worst stick in my throat like tiny fish bones. The bracelet I lost and still can't find, my sniffy nose, what Shonda said at recess. But saying it out loud helps. We listen and laugh. After supper, we all play a trivia game. And once, I even win.
Forgiveness. I start walking home from school when I hear my name called. I turn around. It's him. Yes, him. The one who once asked me, "Why do you always try to act like one of us?" All because I earned my A+ report card, pushing through homework instead of playing video games. Not saying you ain't or you is or I'm doing good. "Hey man," he says, "I'm sorry for what I said to you a while back." I freeze in shock before matching his extended hand with my own. "Wow, thanks man," I say. "That means a lot." "I'm curious though, what made you apologize to me?" "Well," he says, "last week a couple of African Americans asked me the same question I asked you."
Apology. When Shonda presents her family tree to the class, I see all the top branches are draped in chains. Because my ancestors were slaves, she says. I swallow. I want to say, I'm sorry. But those words are so small for something so big. Still, I want to try. So I write it on a scrap of paper, find her library book, and tuck it inside.
I've got choice like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul.
This is a picture that I'm showing of a coastline in a tiny town in France called Étretat. These are pictures from a trip we were fortunate enough to take 2 years ago. And if any of you have watched the short French Netflix series Lupin, you'll recognize this as featuring prominently in the final episode. And if you haven't watched that, then I highly recommend it. There's our Netflix recommendation tip for the day. Anyhow, once you leave the sidewalk up on the embankment, you soon discover that this isn't a hospitable walk down the beach. This is a landscape with sizable rocks making up the terrain. And on our trek to the cliffs and the caves, it is a slow and deliberate journey. One wrong move and you've twisted an ankle. One careless step and your foot has slipped off the slick, uneven surfaces. We think of a rock bed and we often think of rivers and the smooth rocks we find there. If you've ever crossed a creek or a small river, you know the difficulty and the danger is just as real from those slippery, uneven rocks as you make your way across. I'm using a metaphor of a rock bed to talk about the difficult terrain of racism and privilege in this Black History Month 2021. It's easy for a person to bristle when they hear the word privilege, especially when applied to the colors of our skin, as in white privilege, because there are millions of white people who didn't grow up with money, or a good education, or a solid family background, or maybe even a family at all. So when some of us hear the word privilege, they go, "What privilege?" The thing I always had the luxury of avoiding is that I never had to deal with negative assumptions being made about me based on the color of my skin. And that's another definition of privilege, the luxury of having not even to think about it. Compare that to a person of color's experience every day, as we imagine the frustration of having to prove yourself to be something other than what people assume you probably are. The frustration of being judged, of being handcuffed or frisked or pulled over or worse, brutalized and killed because of the color of your skin. From a child's perspective, Charles and Irene illustrate even the pain and the difficulty of this as children, which for many just increases and intensifies into adulthood. Another definition of white privilege that I'm particularly fond of, white privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It just means the color of your skin isn't one of the things making it harder. And so, as a white man living in the prairies in Canada, I am permitted to walk on the paved embankment. moving as fast as I can, whether I walk or whether I run, with a view overlooking everything, while those on the rocks must take every step with caution, moving slow and making painstaking progress, knowing that at any moment, a wrong step or a slippery angle could cause a trip, a fall, a sprain, a break, a disaster. J. Shelley and Willie Huggins IV created a short parable video. It's a scene, perhaps a bit on the nose, but like all parables, perhaps oversimplifies, perhaps using some caricatures, but created to tell a place in the story and to have ourselves see our own self in that story, to contemplate deeply no matter our setting or circumstance. This is their parable.
Hey, are you okay?
Honestly, no. My house burned down 2 weeks ago, and it's been a nightmare ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. I'm so sorry.
No need to apologize. I just need help. I can't rebuild it, especially by myself.
Yeah, well, what
Hey,
are
I'm
some
sorry, I hate to interrupt the conversation, but I'm here too. I also don't have a house right now either. So.
Wait, what, did your house burn down as well?
Yeah, is everything okay?
Yeah, no, everything's fine. It's not on fire, that's for sure. We're renovating. We're tearing the carpet out for wood floors.
Oh, so your house is fine?
It felt like we were talking about his house only. It just didn't feel fair. I mean, there are plenty of other houses in the city, right? Mine included.
Right, but we weren't really just talking about houses, we were talking about his house that burned down.
And it's not just my house.
What do you mean?
I don't know if my family is unlucky or what, but my father's house and his father's house, they all burned down. And my family's been in that neighborhood for over 400 years, and it seems like our houses keep burning down.
So move, right? I mean, that seems like the simplest solution, yeah?
We can't just move. It's not that easy. All right? My family has been in that neighborhood for over 400 years. And we don't have the necessary resources to rebuild. And on top of that, it's like anytime someone asks if there's anything that they can do, it always ends up shifting the conversation to something else, and I'm just tired of it.
I mean, I don't see how that can be true, right? I mean, how hard is it to leave your neighborhood? Where do you live?
The South Side.
Right. I never really go down there. I hear it's pretty bad.
Jabari, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. And I want to help, I do, and I feel like I don't really know how to help, and you seem like such a genuinely awesome person, and this sounds stupid and unfair to say, but is there any way that you could help me understand how to be an ally or help me know what I can do?
I appreciate that. In order for you to help, first off, you need...
Oh.
Of course.
Are you okay?
Does it look like I'm okay? By the looks of it, I'm the one that got the worst chair.
So why did you sit in it?
I didn't choose this chair. All right, we sat in the chairs with our names on it.
Oh, glad I got this one then.
James, that's insensitive. Jabari, I'm so sorry. When we walked in, I noticed that some of the legs on your chair looked a little unstable, but I didn't know if I should mention it.
You did? Wait, I wish you would have said something.
So do I. I think I was afraid of saying the wrong thing because You're already kind of frustrated, and I didn't want to become part of the problem.
Okay, well, the problem is you not saying anything at all because it makes me feel like you didn't care, because you could have stopped me from falling.
You're right. I shouldn't have been silent. I'm sorry. James, where do you live?
Upper East Side of the city.
That's where the big contractor business is.
Yeah, the owner of that company is a pretty good friend of mine.
Maybe you could ask him if he could help by sending people and supplies to rebuild Jabari's house and the other houses in the neighborhood that have burned down.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, why not?
Well, because then there'd be fewer resources for my neighborhood. I mean, what happens if my house needs a repair, then they can't do it because we gave all the supplies to him.
Wait. I've seen your neighborhood, and there is nowhere near the amount of damage that has been done to mine and my neighbors' houses. Plus, there is plenty of supplies to go around.
Hey, look, man, I'm sure you will figure it out, okay? I mean, can we just change the subject here? Stop talking about burning houses and broken chairs. There are plenty of other worthwhile things in the world to be talking about.
There are a lot of things to talk about, but my house burned down. All right, and it seems like no matter who I ask for help, no one does anything. Not you, not the house insurance people, no one. It seems like all the people that have the resources that can help, they're too self-absorbed and hesitant to share with anybody because they think they're gonna lose something. And I'm tired of it.
What are you doing?
I can't take this anymore. If he can't sit in the same comfort that we can, then I don't want to sit down. And neither should you. Yeah, I'm gonna stand with Jabari.
Go ahead. I'm comfortable where I am.
Look, Jabari, I can't even begin to understand the pain and the discomfort that you and your neighborhood have had to endure. I've driven by the South Side many times on my way to work, and I've seen the terrible destruction that you and your neighborhood have had to go through. And I hate to say it, but I've ignored it because I could. It didn't affect me personally. But not anymore. Where do we start?
You can start by educating yourself. Learning about how and why my neighborhood keeps burning. All right, it's not just about you acknowledging that my neighborhood is in trouble. All right, the damage is so deep, we can't rebuild by ourselves. We need to get rid of the old foundation and lay a new one.
I don't know anything about building houses, but I want to learn.
It's not gonna be easy.
That's okay. Are you coming with us?
You have access to a lot of resources. We could use your help.
What do you say?
As I reflect on that video, I think, of course, of a whole lot of things, but I also go back into my own history. I go back to my experience as a child. I go back to my education. And I realize I've had very little experience as a child with diverse cultures. According to statistics I found, as well as just flipping through some of my yearbooks to see if my memory was accurate, in my graduating class, just under 4% were people of color. We didn't learn about the experiences of other cultures all that much in our curriculum. When I think about the learning I had about indigenous communities, the only thing we learned about in elementary school was how they either aided the English or the French. It was a completely white dominant perspective. Similarly, I didn't know anything about the Black Canadian or Black American experience, history of the significant men and women of those communities, critical events of social justice. They just were not in the curriculum. So not only was the white experience almost the only experience that I had as a kid and a teenager, it set up a worldview that is taking a lifetime to unlearn, to broaden, to transcend. I hope there are many of you listening that are relating to that experience, because the work is ongoing. So I'm encouraged then by changes that are continuing to happen, not only when I learned over the course of the last 10, 15 years of curriculums in my children's schools, making changes for the better, but also to hear stories of ways that we are trying, bit by bit, to act as allies, to learn. Not only to educate all of us in the responsibility of a diverse democracy, but also to empower those of Black heritage to know their stories and help them tell them. This is a story from CBC's The National.
It's very sad to hear what they think it means to be a Black male or a Black female.
Thug.
Ghetto.
Gangs. Loose.
It's really, really difficult for me to see that.
Every year it was the same thing. I would go home and cry, and I would say, wow, my work is cut out for me.
This is, kind of their perceptions coming into the course of what it means to be Black.
Thief.
Poor. Drop out.
How can they aspire to reach their full potential if they view themselves in such a negative light?
Morning, Nick. The goal for students is to learn about African history and to learn more about African Canadian history as well.
In our courses, we never really talk about it.
I didn't know how deep the history was actually going to be.
So I take them back and we go through ancient Egypt.
We explore several African empires.
Just taking them back and really showing, hey, in your DNA is this knowledge, this wisdom from these people.
To actually figure out that Black people had a huge involvement in a lot of the basics to civilization now was kind of really empowering for me.
So for this activity, students had to use the slave trade database online.
I mean, there's a lot of description here. Tara, 26 years old. Just the words, hungry, worried, weak. Will I ever see my family again?
Will I die? The students were essentially giving back some humanity and some identity to those who were aboard the slave ships.
Number 2 Construction Battalion, okay? It did amazing things and did some things that, aren't necessarily recognized in Canadian history.
We don't get to learn about our history unless it's in this class.
This is a major, general chief of staff, something you would have mentioned in, in April of 1916. In France, in the firing line, there is no place for a Black battalion. No white officer would accept an all-Black platoon. What do you think about those comments?
I kind of thought Canada was more of a neutral country and happy to have anybody, but we do have some bad past with the racism, and I was very surprised to hear what I did.
And in the spring of 2011, Chantel was shocked to receive threats.
They wrote some graffiti about me in the bathroom, and then somebody wrote the N-word on my van, and then there was also a letter sent to the school that threatened to kill Black students. We had police presence. My principal gave me her parking spot, and part of me felt, am I putting these kids in danger because I'm so passionate? Am I doing too much? Am I, angering some students? Like, what's this all about? So it was hard. When I would sit and reflect, I thought, man, if I could only get that student in my class, I could change that student.
Everyone has a story behind them. I honestly spread the stuff we learn. Like, I tell my friends about it, I tell my parents about it, I tell my siblings.
I really want to encourage all my friends to take one of these classes.
Their definition of who they are and what they can become and what they come from has completely changed.
It makes me feel like I can be anybody I want, to be honest. I could be a lawyer like I wanted to be. I could just do whatever I want, because it's not that I have to follow the stereotype anymore.
It opens my eyes and shows me that just because that's what society puts upon us doesn't mean that we have to fit that standard, and we can become more than that, and that we are more than that.
The evolution of our education is just one piece of how we honor Black History Month, but more than that, how we change, starting with ourselves, our approach to being diverse and allies of diversity. But that kind of education is not everywhere, unfortunately, and in some places in our country, it's going backwards. So it goes without saying that that kind of education starts with us. We all need to know more. Many of you have shared the excellent books you've read in the last year. We have an opportunity this Tuesday night to study the challenging and needed ideas in the book White Fragility. That's this Tuesday night. You'll hear more about that in the Tuesday topic. These are only parts of the ways that we start that journey and continue that journey. There's a teaching in Paul's letter to the Galatians that goes like this. When we were young, we were carefully surrounded and protected by our religious tradition to keep everything sorted. Our religious law was like those Greek tutors who escort children to school and protect them from danger or distraction, making sure the children will really get to the place they set out for. But now, in growing maturity, we claim more responsibility. Are we not able now to cross the street alone? We now claim our life and faith for ourselves. And within it, there can no longer be any division into Jew and non-Jew, slave and free, male and female. We are all one. To me, this means that when we infuse ourselves with deep wisdom, when we look for wisdom in our lives with the highest intentions for our ethics, our morality, our humanity, as we do together as community, then we will not let those divisions separate us. We will see our differences. We will honor our differences. We will listen despite our differences, but we will not let them divide us. We will not let our differences damage our deep connection to our fellow humanity. Unfortunately, racial justice doesn't just happen because we've read about it or wish it so. It happens bit by bit because we help each other ask hard questions. That first video of the scene with the 3 chairs, the 3 individuals, those help us ask hard questions. Moving bit by bit toward racial justice in our own living happens because we wish to step in to agitate for change in places that seem entirely comfortable. It happens because we decide we won't be silent in the face of overt or subversive, entrenched or systematic racism. Living in this way will inspire uncomfortable questions. Like, how is diversity and broad racial experience represented at SSUC, our very own spiritual community? We need those uncomfortable questions. How is racial diversity represented in our leadership in our participation? Why are the people that are here here? Why are the people that aren't here not here? How about the groups and connections of your life? How do we stand up from our comfortable chairs in all of the situations we find ourselves in? How do we use our resources to restart, rebuild, reframe, reconnect? How do we move down from the smooth embankment and onto the rocks so that those having to painstakingly navigate them have others to walk with them? As we recognize the unsteady ground of the rockbed in our lives and in our hearts, I hope we can be invited to honor Black History Month as a time of celebration, of strength and resilience. But just as the riverbank makes all those rocks smooth by its persistent movement of the water, it also makes those same rocks slippery and dangerous. So may this also be a time not just for honoring and celebrating strength, but for learning, for understanding, for listening, for allyship and small acts of resistance, wherever we can stand up from our chair of comfort and privilege. So may we navigate our journeys with care and with strength, to lean on each other in so many ways.
I want to take a moment to share a few invitations with you to take this conversation that Chris has opened for us this morning, to take it deeper in a few ways. Immediately following our gathering today, we invite you to join us on Zoom for an opportunity to go deeper, an opportunity to utilize something of the Circle Way process adapted in this setting to be online with one another, to explore the theme of today's gathering, some of the hard things that we find to talk about in this whole conversation of race, systemic racism, privilege, and an opportunity we have with each other just now. About 11:15, you'll find the link for the Zoom gathering on our website. You see it there on the screen. Please feel welcome to join us. And then, as Chris mentioned, on Tuesday evening, a further opportunity to explore privilege, looking at some excerpts from the book by Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility, looking at the question of why it's hard for white people to talk about racism. It's also an opportunity to gather on Zoom at 6:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 Central Time, facilitated by SSUC Saskatoon. If you want to sign in about 10 minutes before the half hour, there will be an opportunity to visit and have a bit of time just to catch up with one another before engaging the material of the evening. As we do each week, we don't take your support for granted. We appreciate it greatly, and it makes so much possible for us. You will soon see word of our 2020 year end and celebrating the good news that we received over $15,000 surplus of income over expenses in 2020, in a very unusual year. And that is due to your incredible and consistent support. You see on the screen various ways. Those of you who are able to support us financially, these are the ways that you can do that. We are grateful for the support you give us by your presence, by volunteering, by connecting with us, and for those who are able, by supporting us financially. We have another invitation to tell you about, which is also an act of support and allyship, and Chris is going to tell us a little bit about Pi Day.
Lemon meringue, I think, is my favorite pie, but you'd have to work hard to find one I didn't like. So I'm just speaking from my stomach's perspective when I say that I am really looking forward to the fact that we can have a little fundraiser in March for National Affirming Pi Day. If you don't know, pi is a mathematical number. It's involved with circles, finding the area and the radius of a circle, all that kind of stuff. And it's 3.14 blank, 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 blank on for eternity. But 3.14, you could call March 14th 3.14, 3/14. That is National Pi Day. So we are going to have an online silent auction. It's going to benefit both SSUC and CHU, which is an Edmonton agency doing work with LGBTQ2S+ youth and young adults. Many of you are familiar with Corey Wyness, who is the lead person on the ground in the CHU program. And we are going to augment our support to them with this fundraiser to celebrate Pi Day, which National Affirm has intended to be public, intentional, and explicit about our allyship. So here is the thing. The actual silent auction is going to take place March 5th to 11th. That will be online. You'll get more information soon about that in terms of how you bid, how you go online, and what you do for that. But before we can even get to March 5th to 11th, we have to have some pies. So between now and about 10 days from now, we are calling all of you pie providers to think about whether you could provide a pie for our silent auction. Now, do you have to make a pie from scratch? No, we will gladly accept a homemade pie. But not everyone makes pie dough from scratch. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't even have a clue. So, buy that frozen pie shell from the freezer and make a pie that way. Or, not everyone does that. So why not stop into your favorite pie shop or bakery and buy what looks to be a fantastic pie for you and provide a pie that way? Oh, that would be great as well. So there is a way to sign up to provide a pie. Go to our website, ssucedmonton.com/pie day, P-I-E day, and you will find there a link to be able to share what pie, how many pies, and all that kind of stuff that you want to provide. And then, once we have the pies, we'll get all the online stuff set up so that on March 5th to 11th, we can bid away on those fantastic and delicious pies. So, thank you for supporting this lovely March fundraiser that we'll do, and we'll have fun doing it. Thank you.
We have the courage to change our light, to put our breath into the light of our compassion, our sense of justice, our sense of equity, our sense of fairness. We change the world one breath at a time as we have the courage to stand with, to stand for, to stand against, to stand beside, as we learn how to be more effective allies, changing the light of our passion with the energy of our breath, following our hearts. We will know what it is we need to do. Let us be on a journey of learning and a journey that transforms what it is we know into what it is our feet do. And so we go into this day, into this week. Be safe, friends, be well, and we'll see you soon.